I got involved, yes, in the very beginning when the letter arrived in my mailbox that the pipeline was going to come right through my home place and my land across the road from me. It would have devastated my whole operation. I immediately set in motion that I was not going to support this. I reached out and I hired our attorney. I got a contact and got him on board to represent me and any other landowners that wanted to join with us. In the beginning, he told us we'd need about 40 to make it work, and it's ballooned up to South Dakota. I think he's up to like 180 at one time. So, and I think he's over 1,000 in 4 states right now of clients now. So it's taken off from there. And the first meetings we held that Summit held, when I went, they presented their information to us of a group. I suppose there was 300-400 people there in the room. None of us knew one another. I didn't know what was going to happen. And when they got done, they opened it up for comments and questions, and they had a mic you had to take in the middle of the room. Everybody kind of sat there, and I leaned over to one of my brothers that was with me, and I said, well, I guess I'm going to be the first one to open my mouth, and we'll find out where everybody stands. And when I got up, my question to Summit was, are you willing to rule out the use of eminent domain on those of us that do not want your project? And they would not answer my question. And I had to ask the question 3 times. And the 3rd time I said, sir, I want a yes or no answer. Will you rule out the use of eminent domain? And he said, no, we cannot do that. That set the whole crowd in motion against this thing. And from that point on, I asked a few more questions, and I had about 10 minutes time, and they were trying to cut me off. Well, I sat down, and the next thing, a young man got up in front of me about 5 rows and started asking questions that was opposed to it. His name was Mark Lapka. I didn't know who he was. And when he was so angry as he walked out of the room when they didn't answer his questions, he left the room and he walked by me. I was on the edge of the row. And all I did was whisper to him the words, thank you. And then another young man got up and started asking questions and complaining about the project. His name was Jared Bosley. All these key people now, you know, that none of us had anything to do with one another. And so eventually when he got done, and I think there was one more person, there was only 4 people that spoke, and Summit was so frustrated they cut the meeting off. And so people got up to leave. I got up to leave and walked out in the lobby going to the parking lot, and all these people started running up to me and saying, thanking me for what I said, and saying we have to exchange phone numbers. We have to keep in touch. We have to start an organization. We have to do something about this. That's where I met Mark the first. That's what we did. It was just a shoestring organization that we started, and it's just taken off from there. And then we started having local meetings in the community. I had my first landowner meeting in Millette in my community center. I think I've had 3 of them there now over the course of the last 2 years. And I didn't even advertise it. I just made a few phone calls because, frankly, we didn't know who all it was crossing because Summit was secretive about. We'd never seen a map. The only way you'd find out is if you just started calling neighbors and saying, hey, is it coming on you or what? So I just spread the word. I made about maybe 5 or 6 phone calls. I thought I'd have 10 or 12 people there. We had like 72 people show up that signed in. And I knew then that this thing was not popular. And from that point on, Mark came to that meeting, Lapka, and then he said, do you think it would do any good if I had one up in Leola, in his county, McPherson? And I said, absolutely, and he wanted to know if I would come up there, and I did. I walked into the school gymnasium there, and the whole side of the bleachers, the one whole side was completely full. Right. And it's taken off from then, and it's just grown, and it was all started up in the northern part of the state, see, and then the people in the southern half, when Navigator came on, then they started to get involved, and now we've got an organization statewide that's really active and involved in this. I knew right away, first of all, anybody that no one had heard a thing about this, and it made me suspicious that anybody would do business like that, would just spring it on somebody without nobody even knowing what it was. And then accompanying the letter was the map of my property where they already had the route designed. I'd never been talked to about it. And then there was a form in there that they were going to come and survey right away within a week, and I was supposed to fill that form out and send back to them and let them come and survey, which I wasn't going to do. And so immediately I knew there's something wrong with this. And I didn't want this pipeline crisscrossing diagonally through my farm out. It would have ruined me. I had cattle there. I mean, that's the 2 quarters are the only 2 quarters that I have right close to home that I run the cattle operation on. I have other land, but it's not convenient for the cattle. It's further away. So that would have just destroyed my operation. And so I refused, and I had known Brian Jordy from his previous work in Nebraska representing the landowners. I'd followed that issue for 12 years with them fighting the Keystone XL pipeline. And I knew he'd had success on that. And immediately I wanted him to represent me. I mean, we started having these meetings, and then the next thing you know, we went to our counties and tried to educate our county commissioners, because frankly, that's what the PUC told us to do. When the PUC was required to hold public meetings before we went through the permitting process. They had to have 4 of them all over the area. They had one in Aberdeen, one in Redfield, De Smet, and I think one in Sioux Falls area. Well, at the end of each one of their meetings, Commissioner Hansen made the statement that we want to know how your local officials feel. That's going to be very important to us. So that told us we had to go to our counties, our locally elected boards. Now, my township board, I went to them immediately on my own at the first time after letters came out. My township was the first township to come out with a recommendation that said we do not want this pipeline, Millette Township in Spink County. And from then on, we went to the counties. And thankfully, we've gotten commissioners on board. We've got a great group of commissioners in Spink County that adopted the ordinance. Brown County has done it, McPherson County. And so that put the mechanisms in place to put the skids on this. Before they adopted the ordinances, they put moratoriums in place to give them time to do the ordinances. And throughout the whole process, all they got was threats and intimidation and harassment from Summit people coming to the meetings. In fact, it got them sued. They sued all those counties, threatened them. They held firm, thankfully. There were a couple other counties that caved and dropped their efforts because of the lawsuit threat. But we have 3 counties that didn't succumb to the threats and the pressure, and they did the right thing, and now they've been vindicated. Yeah. You better be concerned about our eminent domain law, and you better get on board and help us reform the eminent domain laws, because there isn't anybody here that's safe. Because what our state allows is that any private individual or private company can form an LLC and come up with any kind of a scheme or idea, and as long as they have a permit pending before our state governmental bodies, whether it's the PUC or Department of Ag and Natural Resources, whatever, they're free to start surveying on your property without your permission. They're free to institute eminent domain proceedings against you to take your property from you without your permission before they even have a permitted project. And that's what's wrong in our state, and we need to reform that process and stop that, so that can't be going on until they have a permitted project. That's why it's important for everybody to understand that whether you live in town or out in the country, nobody is safe from a private individual or corporation doing this to you, and you'd better be concerned.